Hello, everyone. Welcome to our second webinar of our Being Agile with Atlassian series. Today, we're going to talk about Agile Requirements Management with Atlassian. For those of you that had missed our previous webinar, we had touched upon Agile Portfolio Management, and that kind of dealt more with getting ideas vetted and qualified in order to only undertake projects that bring in business value and the process in managing and tracking that. Today we're going to undertake the process regarding the first steps in actually implementing a project, or first steps in actually building a product or service, and that's in gathering the requirements. And that's what we're going to touch upon today. Brief overview to AdTech. If you're unfamiliar with us, we are software configuration specialists. We've been in the industry for a little over 7 years. We've been Atlassian experts for a little over 2 years now, and within our Atlassian experts realm, we offer managed hosting, build automation, custom development, agile workflow configuration, general consultation, and these are just some of the few major services that we offer, but anything Atlassian or automation related, we pretty much handle as well. So for those of you unfamiliar with Atlassian, Atlassian is the developers of the collaboration software for software teams, namely JIRA and Confluence. They've been ranked as a leader in the software industry by Gartner, having over 30,000 companies currently using their tools to power their software teams. So we partnered with Atlassian because obviously we've seen the value in their tools, and we started using their tools internally and realized the value in them, and so we decided to become Atlassian experts and to partner with them in delivering value to our customers through Atlassian services. So just a brief overview of the items that we're going to cover in this webinar. This is just a brief roadmap. To recap again, the Agile Portfolio Management webinar that we gave that outlined the process of vetting and qualifying an idea. So first with that, we had an ideation phase, right, where ideas came in. Then we would qualify that idea. You know, is this idea good? Does this idea have the potential for us to commit the resources required to deliver on it? And then there's an elaboration phase. If that answer to that question is yes, we would then elaborate a little bit more in detail. Okay, really, what is the scope of this project? Is it feasible? You know, is it marketable, et cetera, until we get to a point where we're actually going to approve it or disapprove it. And then once we approve it, it is loaded for construction, and then it isn't loaded for construction until the product is done. Now, this webinar, we're going to interject right in at this phase here. Once the project is loaded for construction, yes, we did an elaboration, but at this point, we are now going to actually gather the hard requirements that would be transferred to delivery team or technical teams, or will be transferred to whatever team is going to be involved in actually executing the initiative or the project. So for this process, we've outlined another simple 5-step process that we're going to cover in this webinar. Keep in mind that this is just for demonstration purposes. We just want to display the functionality of the tools. We just want to display the possibilities. So understand how your process is currently done, and don't think that we're promoting a complete revamping of your internal process, but we're going to quickly show you how the Atlassian tools can complement or facilitate different areas of the requirements gathering process. So first, we're going to start out. We're going to talk about the feature scoping level. So this is the very broad level. This is just kind of jotting down the major points of the project or the initiative, the big overarching themes or concepts. Once we have that, we'll drill down to a little bit more concrete items and begin authoring the actual requirements. And then those requirements will go through a review phase with the major stakeholders and things like that. And then we'll have a grooming phase. So, you know, as we're authoring and finalizing requirements, there's going to have to be priorities set and business values set and Some requirements may not make it into version 1 and things like that. So we'll have this grooming and collaboration phase where we're working with our team to kind of figure out, okay, what of these bucket of requirements can we effectively deliver this time around. And so we'll have that phase. And then we'll also have a traceability aspect to the webinar. We want to be able to track our requirements to make sure that they are actually ending up in the final product, in the final initiative. And we also want to be able to track the progress as those requirements are being built out or being executed. So we want to understand if there are any obstacles, if there are any issues, if there are any holdups, delays, etc. So we want that clear visibility and that clear traceability. And then lastly, we'll have reporting. So this is mainly going to focus on like team performance. Are we on track with the project as a whole? Are we falling behind? Are we doing really well? Are there any areas of risk or concern that we should shift our attention to? And the reports that we generate in the Atlassian tools are going to help us do that. So we'll use dashboards and little things like that and gadgets and things like that to kind of help us get that visibility as well. Like the last webinar, we're going to touch upon 3 major tools. We're going to use Atlassian's JIRA, which is the issue tracking tool. That's going to serve as the foundation for everything. That's going to serve as the tool that is handling the workflows and the transitioning of tickets and ticket creation. We're going to use also JIRA Agile, which is a Agile project management tool that's going to sit on top of JIRA. And what that's going to allow us to do is going to allow us to visualize these issues now within a Scrum board or within a Kanban board. So we actually see kind of where items are in the entire workflow of things. And lastly, we're going to use Confluence, which is our wiki and documentation system. And this is where all of our heavy documentation is going to be housed. And this will also include mock-ups. We'll collaborate on Confluence. The actual requirements themselves may be actually written and documented in Confluence. Any other notes or remarks, those kinds of things will be housed in Confluence. So this is just another representation of the topic that we're going to cover today. I did this in the last webinar too. So if you remember, we have new ideas first, and obviously not every idea is perfect. Not every idea is viable. And so we have a selection process where we identify which of those projects that we're going to commit to, which of those projects that we feel are going to bring in the value, and that we feel that we're confident in executing. Once we've selected those projects, each project would then have to be broken down into the major features, right? The feature scoping phase. So this is where the overarching themes related to that particular project, and then we'll break that down further, each feature into user stories, and then the user stories will be broken down into specific tasks that we would assign to our developers, and then we would break up these tasks into groups or chunks that we deliver in sprints until the entire project is completed. So this kind of the project management, Agile project management overview in general. And today we're going to be focusing right in here on these 2 steps here, from going from the feature scoping to breaking down the user stories and getting the requirements that we hand over to the delivery team. This is just another representation of the process that we're going to follow today. So say we have a project as business analytics software. That's a big concept. It's kind of hard to kind of wrap your head around the entirety of that initiative. But we'll break that down first into epics and features, right? And so these will be the major high-level modules of the product. For example, maybe the software will have a mobile app component, a desktop component, or whatever else. So you'd have these major epics and features. And then we'd break down those epics and features into user stories. So for instance, maybe one user story of the app or the software is that a user should be able to sort through sales data, right? If we're talking about the analytics software. So this is kind of a this is kind of an example of a user story that we might have. And then in order to do that, we would have to assign specific tasks to a developer. A UI would have to be created for a sort menu drop-down button, for instance. Back-end development capability for actually searching and sorting. And then an API connection to the sales tool or whatever else. So these are just, again, just examples of the task and the requirements that we'll touch upon. So this is kind of just another way to look at it, just another perspective on the process that we're going to take today. So what I wanted to do right now is I want you to think about your current situation at your organizations. Think about your current challenges, your current obstacles, the bottlenecks that are prohibiting you from being as efficient and high performing as you would like, specifically in regards to requirements management. What are they? You can just take a minute to just think about that. You can put that in the chat as well, and maybe we could address some of your concerns or obstacles directly later on. Here are some of the ones that we've come across as from our experience in the industry and from our research as well. So one of the major ones we have here is limited access to stakeholders. Obviously, when you have a project, you have many different people that have vested interest in. They want their initiatives or tasks to be taken up as priority, and many times what would happen as well is the major stakeholders are busy, they're running around, they're just not available, and so getting everybody kind of in the same room at the same time to kind of talk about things can be difficult. And we're going to show you how we can work around this through Confluence and the many different collaboration features that we have there to kind of make it convenient for everybody to get involved and to provide their input in a timely manner. We have conflicting priorities. A lot of times, there's another common scenario in the workplace today where you have whoever shouts the loudest kind of gets their initiatives highly prioritized over others. So we want to be able to that's not really a good model that we want to follow. We want to follow a model that generates business value, right? The items that generate the most business value at the least cost should take priority, right? Or the items that are most complex or the most riskiest, we kind of want to, we want to have an architecture that makes sense for prioritizing our items and our requirements. Then we have the customer not knowing what they want. Now this is not necessarily a bad thing on the customer's behalf. You don't have to yell at them or get angry at them. Many times, even if we think about it in our day-to-day lives, that we as the customer may not know exactly what we want. When we go to the doctor, we have a problem. We don't know what the solution should be, but we know what the problem is, and we're hoping to help. We're hoping to be guided as to what that solution should look like from the professional, from the vendor. So a lot of times the customer may not know exactly what they want, and that's okay. We have to come up with a way to help guide the process and to help bring their vision from an abstract to a concrete concept. You'll see there I have ICKY-WISY in parentheses, and that's just an acronym for I'll know it when I see it. A lot of times this is the case when you have like a UI, or maybe you have some sort of item that needs to be designed, and you're not speaking with designers at the time. So maybe they know they want it to look good, or they want it to have these colors, but they'll really know what they want when they see some examples for that, or some concepts, some drafts, and things like that. Customer changing their mind. Again, this is not something for you to get mad or beat up the customer for. There are many different factors that may play into a change of heart or a change of mind. Environmental factors, political changes, market changes. There are many different drivers for that may lead to a change in requirements mid-project. And the way for us to best handle this is to have a system that is agile enough, right? Have a system that can pivot, and a system that would allow us to adjust and adapt quickly to these changes, and in that sense, gracefully handle the change when that happens. And we have to plan for that accordingly. Missing, incomplete, or ambiguous requirements. We're going to touch upon how we can handle that through neatly organized templates. Then we'll have developers not really understanding the problem domain. This is a big one as well. and we'll touch upon how we can make sure that everybody is involved and on the same page with the initiatives. No clear definition of done or no set acceptance criteria, no clear definition of success. What is the goal? What is the target? How do we know that this initiative has been successfully accomplished or completed? And then we have moving from abstract to concrete. So this is, again, kind of just taking this high overarching idea and actually bringing it down to a tangible, concrete form factor. So these are just a few of the major ones that we have. You may, again, obviously have your own obstacles that you're facing. These are just some of the ones that we're going to make sure that we tackle today in our demonstration of our requirements management environment that we've created with the Atlassian tools. So I have on the line with me Charu. Charu is a certified Scrum expert and a technical lead here at AdTech. Together with the technical team, she has created a Atlassian requirements management environment that's highly customized and tweaked around to kind of, provide our representation of what the best practices and things like that should be handled within the requirements management process. And so she's going to go and show us more about that tool and bring us through the demo. Okay. So Charu, I will go ahead and transfer the controls to you now.
Sure. So good morning, everyone. Let me thank Andrew for introducing all of us to requirement management. I'm Charu here, and I'm working with AdTech as technical lead. So before we start about the requirement management, we all know that the well-captured requirements are the key to a successful project. But at the same time, we see that the business analysts or the product owners, they usually struggle to capture the requirements, though they have understood them perfectly. So expressing the requirements is what becomes important when we start thinking of converting the requirements into product or a service. Now, if we talk only about requirement management, as we said that it's all about capturing and also understanding the requirements. These requirements that usually shoot up directly from the customer needs and expectations. Now, the product owners, the Scrum Masters, and even the Scrum team, they need to understand, communicate, and deliver on the requirements in order to, meet the customer demands. And all this has to be done quite quick enough. So as Andrew has mentioned, few of the obstacles. In front of you, you can see that, limited access to stakeholders. The developers, they do not understand the problem, or maybe the definition of done is not clearly mentioned. So there's no, proper goal in front of the teams who are actually participating in implementation of any concept or an idea. Or maybe sometimes the customer does not know what the customer wants. Such as, all these problems, how are we going to handle? Now you can see the requirement gathering process. We have few steps that Andrew has already mentioned. Now let's say that we are going to try out these all processes and let's try to address these problems that we have listed over here. In my opinion, in order to address all these problems and also to have the agility that we are thinking, we need more dynamic and competitive process of capturing requirements, like setting priorities, gathering requirements, grooming them, and delivering the product ultimately. Maybe the old ways may not work effectively as we require in today's day. Now, who are the participants in completing a project? If we think back, of course, the customer is main person, then the product owner, Scrum Master, and the Scrum team. Now, I think that the product owners, they play a role of representing the customer to the Scrum team. They should have a clear idea of what actually the customer needs and expects. On the other hand, if you think about the Scrum team, it's a technical pool who should understand the technical intricacies of implementing those stories or those requirements. Now, how these two parties who are physically apart work together to provide the optimum solution to the customer. We at AdTech, we have designed a solution for that. It's a requirement management solution using the Atlassian tools such as JIRA, Confluence, JIRA Agile. We have also used few add-ons that are provided by JIRA and in Confluence as well. In our last webinar, we saw that how these fantastic tools, they made the portfolio management a very easy and a transparent task. But now we feel that it's not only sufficient to concentrate on portfolio management, of course, in any organization, when we aim to produce a sellable product or a successful project. Now let's have a small recap of what we saw in our last webinar. We saw that we had few concepts we wanted to convert into projects or products. It takes a whole process to convert a concept into a project. It undergoes various stages, like it needs to be qualified, it has to be elaborated in versatile ways so as to assure the success. Now let's take an example of this particular concept, which is in approved construction status. Let's have a look at what exactly this concept says. The concept is about having the business analytics software. So we have to build software, business analytics software with user-friendly front-end and say a robust back-end. Now you can see that we have the relevant Confluence pages attached to this particular concept, that is the JIRA issue, and the entire market study in terms of the ROI or the market conditions and the success, how this concept can be made successful. Entire information is locked in these Confluence pages. Also, we have weighed the particular concept in terms of the relevance to your organization, strategic alignment of the concept with the organization strategies. Also, the value and the risk, which is important. Then the elaboration has done based on the estimated cost, the revenue the idea might generate, or maybe the cost it might save for us, or maybe we have also estimated the efforts that we need to put in. We have also got all the approvals, like the elaboration page, the qualification, as well as the PSM panel, who is the portfolio management panel, has approved this particular concept for the further construction. So this is how the concept looks like. And now I'll go ahead and let's take this example ahead and pull this thread for the requirement management. So this concept is well elaborated and is ready to be loaded for construction. Now I'll simply go and click on Start Construction. Here, if you think we were talking about the feature scope, we are trying to fix the scope of the idea that we are going to develop or that we are going to implement. Now here, as if you see the idea, we wanted to build a business analytics software with the user-friendly front end and the robust back end. So here maybe we have got 2 milestones to complete here. Now when we are anticipating here the fixed version or maybe the launch version of this particular the concept. Now just for the example, let's say that we are going to launch these 2 milestones in version 1 of the business analytics software. So I would simply capture here that there are 2 features to this concept. So now there are 2 features. I simply click on Start Construction, and when I say that there are 2 features, I would need 2 separate placeholders for all the work that would be done under those 2 placeholders. You can see that there are 2 epics that got created. Now, best part is I can go and rename these as I wanted. As we decided that maybe the first epic or epic would be, say, the user interface for business analytics software. So let's say that we are going to concentrate on this particular thing, where we would be doing the all work that is necessary to develop a business interface, or the user interface for the business analytics software. Now, before we dig into the requirements, let's have a look at what this epic would go through. Now, as we saw in our last webinar that for a particular concept, we have a few stages that every idea or a concept would go through. Now here also you have different stages for each and every epic that you're going to create in JIRA. Now the epic is in break stories. So maybe here where we will be capturing the requirements from the customer, we will be grooming those requirements. We'll be making those requirements ready. And this is the point where we would say that, okay, the stories are created. Here, the product owner is product owner is the person who would be playing a main role here. He would gather the requirements from the customer and he would pass on the stories to the Scrum Master. Here, the Scrum Master would work with the entire Scrum team and the stories would be estimated. Now, all the organizations, they have their own way of estimating the stories. Some of the organizations, they estimate the stories in terms of story points based on the complexity of the requirement, or maybe in some organizations the effort estimate is the actual that is how it is weighed. The estimation is done in terms of efforts, number of hours. Once the stories are estimated, the Scrum Master would hand them over again to the product owner, where the product owner needs to prioritize those stories. Now, the prioritization is nothing but, the product owner has to work closely with the customer, and also he has to see the market conditions, and he has to, prioritize the requirements that are going to be picked up for implementation. Now, once the, all the requirements and all the stories that are created for each and every requirement that gets prioritized, the epic becomes ready for implementation. Now, this is the point where actually the epic is, in a bucket where it can be picked up by the implementation team, and the team can actually start the implementation on this. Now, coming back to the requirements of our epic, now you can see that this epic is nothing but a JIRA issue which has some status, which has a type, and the affected version labels. But this is not enough to capture the requirements that basically my epic can have. Now, for that, you can see that there is a conference page that got associated with this particular thing. Let's go and open this particular conference page. You can see this particular page has a specific template attached to it, or maybe this form is a specific template. Now, at Attic, we think that when we are capturing the requirements, it's very much easy for the product owner to capture the requirements if at all we are having a proper framework in which the requirements are captured. So here the template basically you have a table which actually gives you a few of the fields directly from the JIRA issue. If you remember, we had captured the target release as version 1.0 of the business analytics software. We can actually have the launch date. You can capture the launch date for your epic. The document owner right now is the product owner who's going to actually work on this particular document. And as you go ahead in the implementation phase, put the designers, the technical lead, the developers, the test engineers over here. So this is how actually whoever is working on this document, or whoever is referring to this document, has the entire information handy, to work with. Now, it also captures the goals or the background fits, or if you have any assumptions when you are trying to implement something, those assumptions can be actually captured. Now, if you talk about the user stories, these are nothing but the list of the requirements that the product owner would gather from the customer. Now, let's take an example of this particular table. It has numerous columns. Now here, Attic has come up with this particular structure where we want to capture the requirements in a very distributed manner. Of course, your organization can come up with some different structure or a framework that best suits you and the best suits your process in your organization. And these templates can be customized as per your needs. Now here we think that when we are trying to capture the requirement, only the summary or the description of the requirement is not enough, which actually is we are capturing it here. Apart from that, we also need who is going to perform this particular use case, or maybe who is going to have this requirement, or who is going to perform this action. So we are catching the primary actor. Also the acceptance criteria, and I would like to go back to the problems that we were having. There was one very big problem called as no clear definition of done. Though this seems very small, this problem is a big problem, because a definition, if you do not have a definition of done, it is very much hard for the implementation team to start working towards any specific goal, because they do not have any specific goal. And also the testing team who does not have any specific goal, they can start writing test cases. Now here, that's the reason we have come up with this column called as acceptance criteria, where we are specifically capturing what is that definition of done. When we are talking about the user interface, it's very much important to capture the design input. Let's have an example. The first example is the sales manager or a business manager needs the data filters so that the sortable and configurable filters, so I can, slice and dice the data as I please. Now, only reading this, none of the teams will be able to do something on the, or they cannot start development, or also they cannot start writing the test cases. So there we come to acceptance criteria, where we are capturing like data sort options should include sort by product, sort by region, sort by channel or demographic. Now this is giving a clear idea that how exactly the data sorting has to be. Now, further to refine it, we can actually add the design input saying that the user should see a button for sorting the data. Now, let's take an example that if at all I want to, give the UI interface or the interface or any design for the UI, only capturing it in words may not help. So for that reason, you can see that JIRA provides a UI or a UI design add-on just for a share, which is very handy to. Now, let's say that I want to add the user and design input here. I can go and insert the proto share design. Let's say that whoever is going to, any business manager or a sales manager who's going to use this particular software needs to first log in to this particular software. And we want to now, build a particular mock-up for the login page. Now, here you can have different palettes where actually you can drag and drop two of the fields. Let's say that I have a page which has, let's say, two of the fields. One says user name. If you can see that it is so easy for me to drag and drop the HTML elements. I don't have to code anything. I don't have to, I don't have to worry about how is it going to look, because all this look and feel is readily available for me. Now I want two buttons. One is say submit, and maybe the other one says cancel, where I want cancel when I click on that. Now this is how my username, password, or the login page is going to look. Now if I want to test how my mockup is going to look, I can simply click on this, and this gives me the look and feel of the button. I can type in here, and this is so realistic and this is so interactive. Now I simply have to save and close this thing as login page, and I save it. Once I save it, it gets inserted right where we had placed our cursor. So you can see there is a version associated with this. So that's very interesting that ProtoShare design, this particular add-on, actually keeps track of all the versions that you are adding to your particular mockup. So it's very easy for you to understand in which version what changes have you done. Now let's see that I want to simply go and save this particular page, and let's see that how a mockup looks now. It simply looks like an actual login page that anybody would think. This is how this is interactive. So now just imagine that if you are handing over this particular UI mockup or the UI design to your implementation and the testing team, all the talking will be done by the picture, and you don't have to explain it much. This was one of the way how you can actually groom your requirement after you have captured it directly from the customer. Now this is how actually only one part of it you can show. Now I would like to show you that what happens if we want to the entire design. We were thinking of having to show the particular or have the sorting of the data based on say region, age, whatnot. You can see this is the complete UI mockup that you can create for the entire software. That is the front end of the software that you are thinking. You can simply click on this, and this is the interactive mockup that will give the idea to the customer. Maybe sometimes, as Andrew has came up at this point where the customer is not aware of what exactly he wants. So maybe if you share this with even your customer, he or she is going to definitely get a track of thinking. And sharing with your customer is also very easy. You can simply go to tools, go to attachments, and you can find the HTML attachment of this particular page, and you can use this attachment and you can send this attachment via email to your clients or the customers. Now coming back to the requirements. Now let's say that we have already captured all the requirements that we wanted. We have also put the design inputs. And now we want that there are different people or the stakeholders in your company whom you want to share this particular, this particular conference page with. So you want the feedback of these people about the requirements that are being shared. Now, if you remember the last webinar, we had shown you the ad hoc workflow, which was applied to the entire space in the conference. Now, it is possible for you to, apply the workflow to only this particular page. So I simply go and add the workflow. Here, I would be adding the workflow for the approval, and I simply click on OK. Here you can see that a small, workflow got added. It's a 4-step workflow: draft, ready, reviewed, and published. So this is nothing but this is going to drive us through the entire, stages of a particular document before we actually publish it to the customer or maybe the, development or any teams that are going to work on these particular epics. Now, let's say that we are ready with the document and we go and simply say that ready and we accept it. Now, once we accept it, you can see the status has changed from draft to ready. Now, let's say that I want to share this particular document with, the reviewers from different backgrounds, or maybe there are different reviewers I need to include. Let's say I want to include Anup and Andrew, and I will simply go and say, please review. Now, the moment I click on this particular button, assign, an email would be sent to Anup and Andrew both, saying that the link of this particular document would be given to them, where they can simply click and they can go to this document, review it, and they can provide their review comments. It's that easy for even both of them to provide their review comments here itself. Now, just for your reference, I have got one document for which one of the reviewers has accepted and one of the reviewers has rejected this particular document. Now, if you want to just go through the comments that they have provided, we can simply go here and see that, okay, Anup has approved it, where she says it's rejected. Choose that the business values for the requirements need to be reconsidered. So this is how actually you can, have the discussion about the document within your organization or within the JIRA users, JIRA conference users you have, and you can get the feedback on the particular document. Now, when we are talking about a particular place in the document, or maybe let's say we are talking about the assumptions. Let's think that the first assumption: this software will be compatible with only Confluence version 5.0 and above. Now, let's say that I'm the reviewer and I feel that this is not Confluence 5.0, but it's 5.5. Now, in order to give the particular review comment for a particular section, and in that section a particular line, it is a little difficult for me to simply go and catch my comments over. Though this is one of the ways of capturing your comments and sending it to a particular person, or maybe sharing it with all the stakeholders, there is one more add-on that Confluence provides us. We simply click on edit here, and we go to a particular place where we want to place our comment. Now go to insert, and you have one add-on called as top. This is the macro which would allow us to say, put comments at a particular point. Let's see, my comment was it's Confluence version 5.5. So I don't have to write, number of lines just to ask for the change of the version that is written. I simply click on insert. You can see that a small icon got added here. And if I save this, let's see how it looks. When a person who is going to see, he can see the particular, comment which was given by Charu at a particular time and date, and the comment. So the person who is the document owner would understand that, Confluence 5.0 has to be replaced with 5.5. Now, if the person wants to, reply with something, he can simply reply like this. And if I'm again, I want to edit, it's not Confluence 5.5, say 5.6, I can simply go and edit that. Once the person has made changes here, I can simply go and I'm satisfied with the changes he has made. I can go and simply resolve the comments. It will ask me, and the comments will go off. So this is how actually this particular plugin, top plugin, or maybe the particular add-on, which is provided by Confluence, helps us to pinpoint the particular places where we want to, add the our particular comments. Now, when we are talking about this, is all about the grooming and review of your requirements that you were authoring. Now, let's say that your customer is not on your JIRA instance, or he or she does not belong to the JIRA network that you are using. How would you collaborate with your customer? Confluence provides us a tool where we can actually export the entire Confluence page to PDF, or we can export it to Word document, and we can share this document with your customer using your emails. So this is how it's very handy. Simply, click on this, and a PDF document would be saved on local disk, which can be shared easily with your customer. Now, the next point that we want to discuss is about the traceability. Now, if you remember, when we were talking about the different break stories, the estimate stories, prioritize. Let's say that we have already captured all the stories, and now we want to create the tickets or the JIRA tickets for all the requirements that we have captured. Now, just imagine that if I'm the product owner and I need to create tickets for all the requirements that I've captured, I have to, do the copy pasting of all this in the JIRA ticket, which sounds a little tedious and time consuming. Now here, Attic has come up with a small plugin which, facilitates you at a click of few buttons, you can create the JIRA ticket, Now I simply have to go here, which gives me a small, checkbox. Let's say that I want to create, ticket for, say, 4 of these. I simply click on that. Now, by the time we guys are thinking about, capturing all these requirements into JIRA, you can see that this particular plugin goes and creates the JIRA tickets in JIRA, and also, associates those tickets here. You can see that these tickets are created. This is how you have the traceability right from your Confluence page to directly to your JIRA ticket where the story has been captured. Also, when we are talking about a particular all the tickets, you can see that these all tickets, they are created, and they have been created under the specific epic. So those we were talking about where we want to do the UI for business analytics software, and these 4 tickets have been created here. Let's get into one of the tickets and see what this user story actually holds. Now, this is the JIRA story. If we go back to the requirement page, you can see that, the entire, all the summary, the description, the acceptance criteria has been captured as it was there in the requirements page. Now, you can see even the login page that we had, created in the design input has got attached to this particular JIRA issue. Now, from this particular point onward, even the implementation team has the entire information handy in terms of, the requirement captured, groomed, and, reviewed. So this is the point where actually implementation of this particular story can start. Even the business value, if at all, let's see that the product owner tomorrow wants to change business value, we can go and change the business value over here, and, the prioritization can be done at any point of time. Now, if we look at the workflow of what the story is going to have. Now, this particular story, when it is in pending status, here it is where the sprint planning happens. If the story is good enough, the requirement is well captured, and we do not have any kind of ambiguity in it, we can straight away start the implementation. But let's say that it needs some more elaboration. The product owner would, put it into the elaboration phase where product owner can work closely with the customer or even the Scrum team to elaborate it further. Once it is elaborated, the estimation, as I told you, that it can be done, in terms of story points or in terms of the efforts required as your organization pleases, or as you, the way you follow the process in your own organization. Once the estimate is done, we prioritize the story, or basically the product owner has the responsibility of prioritizing the story and, filling the backlog of your Scrum team. Once that is done, the story is ready for implementation, and team can, start implementation on it. So this is how basically the story would go through these various stages. And let me tell you that, these all stages like elaboration, estimate, prioritize, these can have as many iterations as you want, because as these days in this agile world, we cannot actually have the watertight compartments between the elaboration and estimate and prioritization. This has to be, I mean, it's so influential by your customer or the market conditions that we need to keep the room for, iterations as many times as the customer wants. So this is how the story is going to follow the workflow with. Now, let's take an example that, the product owner has actually created all the stories, the implementation has started, and let's say if we go back to the requirements, let's say the export to PDF. This is one of the requirements, and the customer comes to the product owner saying that, it's not only the export to I want the export to Excel also be included in your milestone. Now, how do we do that? How do we handle this particular scope change? I simply click on create issue, and we have an issue type called as change request, where we export to XLS can be captured. So this is how now we capture export to XLS, and simply once we create it, you can see that an issue would be created here. Now, if you open this particular issue, this particular change request, you can have the same workflow that a story follows. So you can elaborate it, you can estimate it, prioritize it, and once it is ready for implementation, you can simply start implementation. This basically gives an idea to the product owner of what has been changed, the scope change since actually the implementation started. So basically, you can have different kind of issue types as per your organization. So we can customize those issue types in order to see the scope change or maybe the bugs that are occurring in the milestone or the epic. Now, this is all about how we can scope the features, how we can author the requirements, how to group, to get reviewed using different add-ons, and how to dig into the design, how to collaborate with the customer on those particular requirements, in order to have the traceability between the requirement page, the different JIRA issues that we are creating, and also the epic under which they are created. Now, when we are talking about the reporting and monitoring, we say that, let's say that we want to know that the product owner wants to work upon the elaboration or prioritization of few of the stories. Now, this is not feasible for any product owner to jump to each and every epic and find out how many stories are there which are assigned to the product owner, and then jump to each and every story and see whether it needs to be elaborated or not. So for that purpose, what we have come up with is an agile board, just owners who can actually, that agile board can bifurcate the entire picture of the stories that are assigned to product owner for different stages. Now you can see that there are, few of the columns in front of you. They're nothing but the elaboration, estimate, prioritize, ready for implementation. So this is how the product owner would come to know that these many stories are, they need to be elaborated, estimated, and prioritized, or maybe they need to be estimated. So this is how actually you can have the, overall look at all the stories that are flowing in your organization. All owners who are working across the projects, they can have stories of different projects. You can see them, this plug or web or VDC. These are different projects, but a single product owner can customize this particular agile board so as to, he or she would have the picture of all the stories he is working on. Secondly, you can see that there are the swim lanes based on the priorities of the stories. So even the product owners, based on these priorities, the product owners can prioritize their own work. Also, there are a few quick filters. Let's say that the product owner wants to see only the change requests. Just at a click of a button, we'll be able to see that how many critical change requests are there, or maybe how many major change requests are there. Or if someone wants to see bugs, that is also possible just at a click of a button. Apart from the quick filters, you can also see that there are a few color codes or color cards that are associated with each of the story that is there on the board. Now, when we are, as you mentioned, that we are now in this particular phase, we are trying to move from abstract to concrete. And this is the point where we actually start getting into the due dates, we start getting into the actual efforts that we are putting in. And, these color cards can actually, play a very important role just to, keep the health check of each and every story that has been worked upon that, or, we are trying to help to, product owners to see that whether the date is approaching, or maybe if we have already crossed the efforts that we have anticipated the story would lead out. So this is how actually you can, customize the agile boards as we want. Now, this was only pertaining to, the product owners. Now, if the business managers or the sales managers, they want to have a look at the entire requirement management board, you can, have the agile board developed in such a way, or implemented in such a way where you have the, let's say, the customizable swim lanes based on the release that we are planning. Let's say that for business analytics software, we have these 2 epics which are planned, or maybe in August you are having these 3 epics which are going to be released, or maybe you have a release which has these 3 epics. So based on the entire picture or entire view of all the epics, what is happening there, we can actually take the decisions. Apart from the, the swim lanes, you also have the quick filters for which, let's say, the requirements which are approved. So you can just at a click, you can see that these are the epics for which the requirements are approved, and you can actually start immediately start some action on these epics. Or maybe if you want to have a list of all the epics which are impact features. Now, let's say if you dig into any of these, you will see that the underlying concept is of a critical priority. So this is how actually you can, have quick filters as customizable. You can customize them as per your needs. Whatever you want handy, you can have a quick filter added over here. So this was about the, the Kanban board that we came up with the requirement management for the purpose of, viewing all the epics that are flowing through your organization. Apart from that, if you want to have an overview of everything that is happening in requirement management, you can have a dashboard, which is basically a collection of different gadgets, maybe a 2-dimensional, filter, which is giving you all the requirement management epics, which are assigned to different people in different status. Or maybe something such as a pie chart, which is giving you, based on the assignee, all the epics which are in break story status. Based on the assignee, you can have the, the pie chart design. Or maybe for all the requirements, all the requirement approved epics, you can have a list like where it is showing the status of each and every epic with the respective product owner. Or maybe an agile gadget, which is, you can have a different filter over here and can do information like how many epics are there, how many are unresolved, or maybe, how many are resolved. You can also deeply you can see that how much time is spent, or maybe the time estimate you had done, and the time remaining for for all these epics for this particular filter. Or maybe there's a classic project, which is telling you that for August release, how much is the progress for the August release. So how much percentage is done and how much is remaining. So you can raise an alarm based on whatever the situation is here. Maybe it can give you an overview of all the epics that are created in a particular week by showing this bar graph. You can just have an idea that how many concepts in your organization are being converted into some doable epics or milestones. Or maybe something where you can have all the epics which are in break story status, and you have the due dates lined up in maybe your calendar view. There's something interesting where heat map, which is telling you that this is the particular product owner who has maximum epics assigned to him. Or maybe you can attach few labels to your epics based on the particular, say, JIRA or infrastructure, and you can simply click on these and trace back to those epics. So this is how the report makes the entire information handy, and at one glance you can have an overview of what is actually happening in requirement management. So basically, I would like to conclude my technical discussion, by stressing upon the fact that the requirements basically are the basis for building any project. All the captured requirements are basically key to the successful project. And here, I think the product owners will have a very crucial responsibility. So this basically the additional layer, that is the product owners in the communication of requirements, has a very a key role to play here. So in today's fast-paced world, when the technology and the customer demands are so dynamic, it's always good to have a supporting document. As we saw that we have a requirement document which is following a particular template, and maybe a mock-up which we constructed along with the requirements document. That example, where the UI related projects, as I said, the picture or the mock-up can do the maximum talking for you. After all, the picture is always better than 1,000 words. So it all boils down to being able to communicate the right things in right and effective way. Because, too often projects are knocked out because of the communication gap among the stakeholders. As you know, basically the communication may take place using email or other documents that may get lost, or are not directly linked to the visual design process as we link the login page. Or maybe the process of reviewing and rebuilding takes so much time that the requirements, they usually go out of market interest and the customer eventually seizes on the same. So to address all these problems, we can use these fantastic Atlassian tools like JIRA, Confluence, JIRA Agile, and few more add-ons as I showed you, the ProShare or the Confluence Talk, etc. To be on top of all these issues, and we can simplify these things and address them. Stay connected with the stakeholders as well as the technical teams and achieve the best results. So I would say that using right set of tools correctly and effectively will ensure that the customer's voice is clearly understood throughout the project, which will definitely result in maximum customer satisfaction. So this was it from my side. I would hand over to Andrew for the further webinar.
Thank you,
Andrew?
Yep, I'll take it over. Yep.
Sure.
All right. Thanks, Charu, once again for showing us that requirements management environment. So just to put a capstone on what we discussed today, I just want to give a recap of some of the key benefits and takeaways that we've now gained as a result of having the Atlassian requirements and the Atlassian requirements and management environment constructed and created. So first and foremost, we have input and collaboration from the stakeholders through the Confluence page, the Talk plugin, and the comments, and as well as the ability to create the mockups in Confluence. Everybody is able to contribute and voice their concerns and their ideas in one central location that the rest of the team can plug into and be updated on what's going on. We have a clear gauge on priority and business value. That was captured in the requirements template where we assigned the value to each requirement. We have detailed mockups and visual aids for prototyping. Charu gave us a little brief demo of the interactive prototyping that we're able to do in Confluence via ProtoShare's plugin. We have flexibility for locking and floating requirements as necessary. We have a consistent and complete set of requirements every time. We've established the miniature documentation workflow as well as the templates that ensure that before a requirement is approved or it moves on to the next step, that it is filled out completely so that the development team or the technical team or whoever is working through those requirements has all of the information they need. Bidirectional traceability throughout a project, so whether we're in Confluence, whether we're in JIRA, whether we're in JIRA Agile, we can directly see the context of whatever issue or document that we're looking at and how it plays out in the whole scheme of the entire project. We have a clear definition of done and progress updates. The dashboards are also a great way for us to get that clear visibility into progress and where we stand, as well as even drilling down into specific tickets where we can see comments and we can see work completed and work that has left to be completed, and we have all of that within JIRA and JIRA Agile as well. And lastly, we have an established and robust workflow. JIRA is great. Obviously, it's very flexible. We showed one workflow today that we've come up with just for the demo purposes, but if you would like it to be customized for your own specific process that you have, all of that is possible as well. But the whole idea is that it would be robust and established, and it would make for a consistent transition from one step to the next, and ultimately a more efficient process. So that ends our requirements management webinar. If you have any questions, please let us know We're happy to answer any questions or concerns that you have. We are also on Facebook and Twitter. If you follow us, our posts are usually very educational. We're constantly posting about best practices and latest updates with Atlassian. We are actually official sponsors at Atlassian Summit, this coming summit in San Jose, California. So we'll be there the entire time from the 9th to the 11th. So come check us out. We have a great little demo that we're going to be putting on. Actually, we have about 2 or 3 product demos that we're going to be putting on at Atlassian Summit. So if you're not already registered or you would like to learn more information, Atlassian has a great page. If you just Google Atlassian Summit 2014, I'm sure you'll find it real easy. So we'll be there. We'll hope to see you there. And then that's all we have for today. So thank you. Have a good day.